Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PGCMLS podcast advisory. Today, we'll be talking about our favorite podcasts for professional development. My name is Joy, and I work at the Bowie branch. And joining me today is Kiana from Glen Arden, Candice from Bowie, and Rachael from Bowie.
Hello.
And fun fact, did you know that podcast is derived from iPod plus broadcast, which was coined in 2004 by Ben Hammersley. However, podcasting has been a thing since the 1980s. Before the World Wide Web, there was the RCS radio computing services, which provided music and talk-related software to radio stations in a digital format.
Wow.
Really cool.
Thank you for the background.
You're welcome.
That's cool, though. I didn't know that was how the name of it came about. So thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm. And it made me think, like, when was the iPod released again? And that was like early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So my first question is, what does professional development mean to you? And to me, professional development is when someone is learning how to thrive and grow in their career/professional life. Although I feel like what's said in professional development podcasts applies to just regular life. And I found that podcasts that aren't technically professional development have also helped. So, Candice, what does professional development mean to you?
So I pretty much share the same thoughts, Joy. Just gathering tools and gaining knowledge or skill sets to be equipped to be, thrive in your career or your professional environment. But it definitely translates over into our personal lives. It's such good advice. So, yeah.
Cool. And what do you think, Kiana?
I agree with what you both have already said. Basically, professional development to me in the bare bones definition is how I can be better at work or whatever my career path is. So whatever helps me do my best at work, that's what professional development means to me.
Yeah, I wrote down learning how to be the best I can be at my job. So I've been in management. So the last few years I've been focusing on management resources. And I really think that they do help us take little tidbits back.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, one podcast I've been obsessed with is Dear HBR.
Me too.
And I love them because the episodes aren't that long, so you don't really get distracted. And they offer all different perspectives. Like, they don't just agree every time, and the other perspectives aren't necessarily wrong. They're just another way to look at it.
Yeah. And they also they'll summarize at the end what their advice is too, which I like, because they'll get into a conversation and you kind of lose track of what they're actually telling you to do. So I like that they summarize it, like they super managered that podcast, and in summary, what are we telling our listener? How should they handle this situation? So I really like Dear HBR.
Super manager. Kiana, what's a favorite podcast that you've listened to?
So right now I've been really into I'm Busy Being Awesome, which is hosted by Paula Inge-Bretson. And it's mostly around productivity, because that's where I tend to struggle, especially with time management and scheduling. She's a life coach. She was diagnosed with ADHD at 31. So a lot of her stuff is surrounded by focusing on how to navigate those avenues. And that's what's been really speaking to me recently. The most recent episode that I listened to is called Stop Trying Harder, where she kind of delves into 3 questions she asks herself to kind of see how she can do better. The question that she asks is, what if it was easy? What would that look like? And could I create the same results in a different way? And what if what I'm already doing is enough? So I thought that was really great. And the episodes aren't that long. They're maybe about 30 minutes or less. And I like that there's a transcript of each episode because one, that makes it accessible, and two, it caters to different learning styles. Because for me, I'm not really an auditory person. I have to like listen to it and read it at the same time.
And Candice?
So for me, I've been listening to Being Boss, Mindset, Habit, Tactics, and I don't know what the last word is because it cuts off in Apple Podcasts. But it's basically about navigating, being a boss, how you manage your thoughts and your approaches to different things in the workplace. And that's good for me because I still feel like I'm relatively a new supervisor, and there's just so much to learn when it comes to leadership through where there's trial and error. But I feel like this podcast has really has given me like the tools to deal with certain things. I don't feel like I'm going in blind. The most recent episode that I listened to was Get Plus Give Support Through Leadership with Sally Netherwood, and it's really good. I'm always trying to like think of like how I can be more supportive at work of my coworkers and even like my fellow leadership team. So I think just going in with like asking myself different questions and checking in with myself to make sure that I'm being a supportive team member, not only looking for support, and getting that from this podcast was like really cool. And I think that kind of like she's really friendly and jovial, and there's like conversation because she's interviewing. It's easier to receive because I like conversation, so I really like her podcast style, and that's what I've been enjoying lately.
That sounds awesome. I agree too because I'm also like a new supervisor, so those tools are helpful. Sorry, Rachel.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I really like also like Ask a Manager, but there's no new episodes anymore, so that makes me sad.
I think she stopped.
Yeah, she stopped. The last episode is like, I have to do what I'm telling you all to do. There's too much on my plate, so I have to take something away. But I really liked her as well as HBR, Dear HBR. Top two faves.
Ask a Manager's blog is still up, so you can still like submit questions to her if you want. And I also really like How's Work by Esther Perel.
I love Esther Perel.
I love her. Her voice is very calming and like she just sees through everything. And like, so she's a therapist and she records her sessions. But How's Work is about how couples are working through work. And it's especially relevant because in the most recent episodes, it's a lot about the pandemic and how that's taken a toll on relationships and how they work through it.
I wouldn't even say that it's just couples either. It's just like like relationships and work, like two business partners, and they want to make sure that their business is successful and they're communicating correctly, and that they're dealing with any issues, ahead of time. So I really like How's Work.
Yeah.
Well,
that sounds good. I have to put her on my list. I've listened to a lot of her TED Talks, but I haven't listened to any of her podcasts or read any of her books yet. So,
where should we begin? Is her other great podcast? I love it.
I love that one too.
Not professional development related, but
right.
I mean,
life related.
Yeah, life related. So I guess it does help you professionally because it makes you more like empathetic and things like that. So.
Yeah, with Esther Perel, I feel like you're just sitting outside and like witnessing her sessions rather than like them just talking to you. So that's kind of cool to have that like third party experience.
Yeah.
But I was reading this article on the Harvard Business Review about toxic positivity. And I think one of the biggest things that I have to learn at work is to be okay with feelings. And so I learned this new term, toxic positivity, which was coined by Dr. Jamie Zuckerman. And it's the assumption either by oneself or others that despite a person's emotional pain or difficult situation, they should only have a positive mindset, or my pet peeve term, positive vibes. And that really resonated with me because we live in this work culture that's like professional all the time. Like, don't show your feelings because feelings equal weakness. And so reading this really affirmed that like, it's okay. And it'll hurt you more if you pretend to like just be okay all the time.
Right.
It's called toxic positivity.
Mm-hmm.
I like that term a lot.
Podcast. Oh gosh, it was on our list. Is it Leaders with Anxiety? I think is what it's called, and I like that because they cover, being a leader and how to manage emotions. I have definitely been emotional at many a time. And I think I wish that was something that people talked about more, because I think people see you as a leader and they're like, you're supposed to have this like stoic, composed, have it together all the time, essence or air about yourself. And it's like, but we're people too. Like, as much as we want to be good at our jobs, like we're not going to get it right every time, or there's stuff that we're dealing with at home, and you may see me not be happy today because of that. And so, I don't know, just humanizing leadership. I love discussions about that. And talking about toxic positivity is definitely important, because I think it's dismissive of other people's feelings, especially other leaders' feelings. It's like, how can I be the best leader to you if like I'm not checking my emotional hygiene? So I love that. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. So, what is one, I guess it's hard to pick one, but just what in your listening, what has helped you the most in your career so far? And I'll throw it to Rachael.
So like one podcast or like one little tidbit?
Yeah, I would say like a piece of advice that the hosts have given.
So I actually I said I started listening to podcasts like 4 years ago, and my first one was Manager Tools, or Manager Toolbox Basics. And they mentioned having one-on-ones with your staff. And I, as soon as I started in my role that I'm in now, I started like doing one-on-ones immediately. And I feel as though that like really set me up for success with my staff members. It was the best advice to this day that I've ever gotten, I think. And any new positions that I had with any new staff, I'd like to keep doing the one-on-ones. It just really helps you with a lot of things. And it's a safe space for you and your employee to talk and, work through whatever you need to work through. And if you need to, like adjust their behavior somehow, or let them know they need to adjust their behavior. I think it's a good space for that.
Yeah. How about you, Kiana?
Anything that has to do with productivity or time management, I'm all over it. So I know Candice mentioned being boss. So what I really like about their podcast and their website is that they have a resource page where you can browse by topic. So they do time management, starting a business, talk about money. The podcast itself is interview style, so they just kind of interview different leaders, what have you, but the focus on creatives and entrepreneurship. But yeah, anything that has to do with time management, productivity, so like how to schedule things and how to manage your time, because that's where I really struggle. So between being boss and I'm busy being awesome, like those two have been getting me through with the productivity.
That's good. Good to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mine is just kind of what I rambled about before. Emotional management and emotional hygiene for leaderships. I think for me, some of the best advice that I've gotten, I think it's from the Anxiety podcast. I don't remember what episode, but just learning to talk about my feelings and confide in someone about it, whether it's leadership at work or at home or professional otherwise, and knowing like it's okay that I feel the way that I feel as a leader, but also knowing that like I can't stay there, and just always moving forward. I know that's like blending into toxic positivity, but me just trying to think progressively and allowing myself a margin of error. Like it's okay for me to fail. Like I'm not going to get it right. It's fine. Take deep breaths. I'm also know like your coworkers are there for support. Like they are your team members. These are people you see even more than your family sometimes. So just leaning and pressing into that and becoming comfortable with that. That's probably some of the best advice I've gotten.
Mm-hmm. And I also think, I don't know if this is a cop-out answer, but just professional developed podcasts in general have been really helpful, because since all their episodes are broken down by topic, I can just be like, okay, today I'm struggling with making decisions, and there's a podcast episode that's like talking about how someone made a decision about something difficult, and then I can be like, ooh, like those are good tips. And like, there's a podcast called The Anxious Achiever, which is about people who are at the top of their field, but they have anxiety. So how they work through everything. And so just in general, just how vast the library is of podcasts is awesome.
Yes.
Even though the best advice I've ever gotten has mostly been in person and like experiencing things. I'm going to quote Rachael, but she says a lot, do what you can with what you have. And it's kind of been like a work mantra whenever I just like feel like I am maybe struggling a little or trying to do all the things, but I can't do all the things. But I want to do all the things.
Yes. You're doing the best with what you have.
Yeah. So when you listen to your podcast, do you listen to them in order or sporadically? I like kind of answered that, but I want to hear how everyone else does it. Candice?
I'm a sporadic listener. I find it easier to listen to short podcasts in order, but when it comes to long podcasts, I tend to prioritize. But yeah, I kind of just I'm the same as you. I listen to whatever is most applicable or relevant to me at the time, and I save everything else for later.
Yeah, I'll listen to random ones. I think I kind of try to go in order, sort of, but I skip over the ones that I don't really care about.
For me, it depends on the genre that I'm listening to. For professional development, I can actually skip around because it's topic based. But generally, I'm the type of person that has to start from the beginning. Even if it's like years old, and I'm like, but I need to know because I feel like I'm going to miss something if I don't start from the beginning. So I don't listen in order, but with professional development, I can listen, jump around because I'm looking for particular topics that relate to what I'm going through at that moment. But I prefer to listen to in order. Which is hard when it's a podcast that's like, I don't know, 15 years old. And that's a lot of material to catch up on.
Yeah.
So at that point, you just kind of have to cut your losses and just say, I just figure out what's relevant to me or, go from there because that's too much.
Yeah. Some of these have like 600 episodes. Like, oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't pick up until later. So they get better and better. So if you listen to the first one, it's just like, hi, it's me.
Like one podcast that I found is The Accidental Creative, which is geared towards creative people, but that one is one that has been going on for like 15 years. And that one I kind of jump around because I just found out about it recently. So the host is Todd Henry, and the most recent episode that I've listened to so far was 10 Questions for Finding Your Voice. And I liked it because basically it's just like questions on how to find like what what really speaks to you, like what is your purpose, I guess. And every job you have, regardless of what you're actually doing, there's like an element of creativity to it. So I thought that, it was interesting for me because to listen to a podcast that was based around like creativity. But the episodes themselves are pretty manageable. They're like 30 minutes or less. So,
yeah, I think if a podcast is on the shorter end, it's easier to digest.
I really like. Have you listened to The Modern Mentor? They're like 15-minute episodes. They're are
so quick.
Great. I love them. Yeah.
Okay, check it.
Yeah. So it's like whenever I don't have enough attention to, listen to a 30-minute or an hour podcast, just throw a couple of those on. And even though it ends up being like a half hour or longer, it still feels more accessible.
Like anything that I can listen to while I'm in my car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On my commute. So.
Yeah, that's my favorite place to listen to it. Like I can kind of do it while I'm cleaning or doing stuff around the house, but then I just get distracted by like, I don't know, whatever is going on in the house.
Yeah.
By what?
By actually cleaning.
Yeah. And then I'm like, wait, what did they say? So it's like when you're in the car, you can't escape. And it's like a good setup for like your day if you're listening to something work related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what was I gonna say? So podcasts are amazing. We all agree.
Yes.
But why are they so much better than like radio?
I don't know. It's more curated, I think. Radio is just like, you get what you get. And like, maybe it'll apply to you, maybe it won't. I don't know.
And commercials. I mean,
Commercials, ugh.
one or two, you know, it's not 3 minutes of them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually don't see much of a difference between podcast and actual radio for me, except that with podcasts you can actually choose what you're listening to, whereas the radio is just, again, like you said, you just get what you get. So that's really the only difference for me, is that with podcasts I can choose what I'm listening to. But as far as like the regular radio, because you still get ads in podcasts or like sponsorships, shout outs, or what have you.
But you can fast forward them.
True. I always listen though.
I'm done with those. I don't have time for those ads. I'm like,
Skip 15 seconds.
That didn't even occur to me. I always listen.
Huh.
They didn't tell you that on one of your time management podcasts? The ads.
Fast forward 15 seconds.
I need to start fast forwarding to those ads.
Yeah.
Actually, I do too. But like sometimes I kind of like listening to them because it's like the host saying like, "Are you hungry right now and don't know what to make for dinner?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am, and I don't know." And then they're like, "Hello Fresh," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right."
I actually subscribed to HelloFresh because of a podcast.
I feel like
it worked.
It works. So when you're not skipping it, you're like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you skip now.
You know, because I can't risk buying.
Exactly. But also with radio, like you can like kind of time out the segments, but then you have to like get to the radio in time to listen to your segment.
Yeah.
You know, like This American Life.
That's even a podcast now too, though. You don't need to listen to it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. NPR's a podcast now.
Yeah.
That's so true. And so will radio disappear?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have enough.
But like the definition is probably just gonna shift. It's just gonna become like podcast.
Yeah.
You know, like because that technically is radio, kind of. Like the concept, anyways, is like radio. Although I guess like the definition of radio is like more scientific than that, but you know.
I don't know a lot about radio broadcasting, but with podcasts, they are extremely accessible, and it's not hard to start one either. So I think it's open to more people to like get on and talk about things. Whereas radio, I don't even know where you begin if you want to start a radio station.
Yeah, I think I love how accessible podcasts are and how easy it is. Like literally anyone can start a podcast, as long as like you don't even need like a lot of equipment. You can like just start with like your phone or something if you really want to. And I think that's amazing.
What were you gonna say, Candice?
I was gonna say I feel like radio could be repurposed. I don't know as what, but if you think about like even outside of professional podcasts, I don't listen to music on the radio anymore.
Me neither.
No, yeah. I kind of go to the radio for NPR. So I don't know. I wonder if radio will shift to be something very different than from what we've been using it as. But honestly, I think it very well could become obsolete.
I mean, they say that about libraries too, though. So we'll see.
We still here.
Because even like in radio, like with music and stuff, people listen to like music on Spotify or Pandora or what have you. So it's all internet radio now.
Yeah.
I wonder if you use radio to try and like find new things like traditional radio, because kind of like how you said, Kiana, like I listen to my Spotify radios to like either find new podcasts or find new music, because I don't feel like going to search for different genres or who's upcoming artists. But Rachel, you made a good point. Libraries really evolved with like what we needed as a society. Like we're more program based, like we do outreach now, like there's so much that we do. So I wonder, I guess, how radio would change throughout the years if people aren't going to it for music anymore or for information. Like how will radio reach the demands of the people? So
I feel like radio is very local. So if you want like local news or like local happenings, that's a good niche for radio, but you can't listen to the radio on double speed, which I really like.
Do you do that? I hate listening to podcasts on double speed.
I listen to it on 1.5 times speed. My boyfriend listens to it on double speed, and they sound like chipmunks.
Yeah.
Like, you know what they're saying? And they're like,
I mean, I guess it's a good way to listen to a bunch of podcasts really quickly, but I don't know. I feel like as soon as they would say something and I actually like absorbed it, they'd be onto something else. But I don't know. Maybe that's how I learn.
That's a talent. I would definitely start zoning out very quickly.
Yeah.
I can listen on 1.5 speed, but that's because I tend to read fast anyways. It's easier for me to process, like especially like if the person speaks very slowly, then I have to like speed it up a little bit because then I'm like I can't focus if it's too slow for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a nice feature that podcasts have.
It's so nice. But yeah, I can't go past 1.5. One is too, like regular is too slow because they're like, hello.
I'm here for the one.
My podcast. Where 1.5 is like, hello, welcome to the podcast.
Let's do this.
Yeah, and if I'm short on time, it helps. If I'm short on time and I need to like listen to like a bunch of them, at a time or whatever, or if I'm trying to get through, like if I'm really going to be heroic and try to start from the beginning of like a really long podcast, I would listen to it at like double speed to try to get through them, to kind of catch up to the most current one.
Mm-hmm. It also makes me think if like, because I know we have audiobooks and we have e-audiobooks, but like what if those are in a more like podcast format where it's like chapter 1 and it's like the first half hour and like chapter 2? I don't know.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. I mean, the e-audio you can listen to faster, which is nice. But to have it like in your podcast app is nice. Because that just comes with a lot of phones, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But then back to the thing about radio, like, I think it'll still be a thing for music too, because what about people who don't have smartphones or a way to access podcasts?
Yeah. I think another thing that I really like about podcasts is that they're mostly free as well. And so that's kind of different than e-audio books. Like you either have to buy them or get them from the library. And sometimes one that I want from the library, there's like a holds list, but podcasts you can just get like immediately. I don't know how that interacts with radio. I think radio is free too, but not quite as curated.
Yeah. And that's like the biggest theme is curation and being able to be like, ooh, this fits me. And like what you were saying about Spotify, I love that there's like genres, like I'm feeling moody. And then it has a playlist for you, which is really nice. Or like there are playlists called like morning commute or like music when you've had it. But circling back to professional development, how has the pandemic affected your work experience? / were there any pandemic specific podcast episodes that stood out to you? And I don't know who to throw it to next. Does anyone have immediate thoughts? Okay, Kiana.
So the pandemic, I'm not gonna lie, I am an anxious mess because of the pandemic.
Yes.
So a lot of my podcasts I've been listening to in general have been about anxiety, but that's a whole other topic. But as far as like professional development, it has affected me at work because obviously how we do things at the library is now different and we have to adapt to that. But I feel like it hasn't changed enough that it doesn't feel like it has changed enough to where it's like stressful, I guess, per se, because the changes that have been made, we're doing the exact same thing that we've been doing, it just now that it's virtual. So it's not like a huge change, it's just that we have to now navigate this new virtual frontier. But some of the podcasts that I've been listening to that have been dealing with the pandemic is how I built this with the host, Guy Raz. It's interview style, and it's about it's about companies. And he has a segment called How I Built Resilience. And in that segment, it's talks about the founder and entrepreneurs that navigate turbulent times, which is especially relevant now because of the pandemic. So I like it about that date. And the podcast is, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I apologize.
Okay.
So it's like various topics from like movies about climate change to talking about the creator of like Duolingo, like language app. But yeah, so the segment that's in that's How I Built Resilience. It's been more relevant with the pandemic. So it's been about more or less how they're dealing with the pandemic and how they're keeping their like companies afloat or whatnot. So, and how they're dealing with that during this difficult time. So that's one. And then the other one has been, hasn't been dealing directly with the pandemic, but it's called Side Hustle Pro, which the host is Nicola Matthews Akome. Where she talks about building a profitable business from like a side hustle. And it's interview style, and she tends to focus on Black women entrepreneurs. And the length could be anywhere between 30 minutes to about an hour and a half with that. And so she's still interviewing people, but now they're just doing it during the pandemic. So talking about like how the pandemic is affecting their side hustle and how they have to now navigate those things. So so now I haven't been listening to things that deal directly with the pandemic, but the pandemic is in the podcast, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those deal directly with the pandemic. Like they're the effects of the pandemic, and you have to deal with, you know, the whatever happens because of this stupid thing.
Joy, could you ask the question again?
Oh, yeah. So how has the pandemic affected your work experience? And were there any pandemic specific episodes that stood out to you?
So the podcast that I had, okay, well, let me rewind. So y'all know we weren't at work for like 3, 4, 6, 2 years. I don't know. But it was and I think prior to us quarantining, I was very like, I'm a natural, like, fast-paced person, but I am constantly having to consciously like slow myself down, and that's harder to do than I think people think. And I don't think a lot of people realize that my brain moves very fast. Like I experience anxiety, but I'm not very verbal about it. I think if anything, it'll like register on my face if someone catches me in the moment or asks me. So that was something I was definitely dealing with before work, just like trying to keep up and with school, and I had another job at the time and just trying to juggle everything. So once we quarantined, I was kind of like forced to slow down, and that was cool. And we still had to work from home. But going back into the branches, I felt like I was starting a new job. And so I started listening to this podcast called Fight, Hustle, and Hurry. And it's based off of a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And that has really helped me just kind of reshape my thought process about like work and like approach to like, I don't like, yes, I have to be on everything, and I have stuff I have to check off my list, but like I am my best when I approach things at a slower, more like focused pace. And even like with the pandemic, like I know you guys know we were doing a schedule where we were working 2 weeks at home and then 1 week in the branch. Coming back and working 2 weeks in a row was crazy for my brain. I felt like I was at work for 10,000 years. And so when I came back, I was like, you know, I come home and I telework and I reevaluate, like, okay, so what could I have done better? What can I do to better support my team members, things like that. But like really taking my time to think about improving myself as a team member and a leader when I go back into the branch next week has been a pivotal part about me going back to work during the pandemic, and even considering others' safety and health and like being empathetic while at work, because like like Kiana said, like this is a very crazy time for everybody. Like we all have anxieties about it, or we have stressors that we're having to deal with, whether it's at work or at home. So I've been listening to this podcast about like slowing down and being more intentional as a leader, and it's been very helpful for me. So I'm gonna answer the question.
Nice. Yeah, it did. I think one of the biggest things about the pandemic specific episodes just like shows that we're all experiencing this right now. It's like a global thing. And in a way, it's like I feel like I'm bonding with the world, even though I wish it were in different circumstances. But I really enjoy listening or getting insight on how others are handling it at work. Don't remember which podcast, but I know that there's been a lot of talk about like what to do with like HR in other companies and how to handle those types of things. And it's very different with other companies, which I didn't even know. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add, but in terms of how it's affected work, I mean, I think one of the hardest things is figuring out how to do things virtually. There's been a lot of learning curves with how we're doing things. And one of those really hard things is reaching teams. And Rachael and Candice, you know, we're buoys, so we're like team central. And so not having direct access to them anymore kind of like poses a new challenge of like, how do we reach our teams and let them know that we're still there for them, because they're e-learning and they're stuck at home, and we still want to offer them great services despite everything. So
the way the pandemic has affected my work experience, I used to listen to e-audiobooks primarily for professional development, but I have like no attention span anymore. And I haven't read since the pandemic began, like read a book. I've had to listen to everything. So I definitely have started liking podcasts better for that, because it's like more conducive to learning things for me. I really like the ones that are dealing with stress and change. I just listened to one on the Emotions Mentor. It's called Let's Talk About You, Crisis, Stress, and Mood. And that one was really good. And I also listened on the Modern Mentor, A Fresh Approach to Managing Burnout. So I really like those two. Those were two really good episodes. So I highly recommend. Those were two pandemic episodes that I really liked.
I have to check them.
Yeah, me too. Because the burnout is real.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Even though it's like we're kind of doing less, but I don't know. I can barely exist.
Yeah.
It's just different. So I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like we're doing less.
Yeah.
And all the Zoom meetings are another like burnout type feeling, a new feeling where I feel like my eyeballs are going to fall out of my head, or I just have to lay down after like 4 back-to-back meetings.
Yeah, and just everything's always changing, like dealing with that. Like, I think I'm a pretty flexible person, but it's like it's all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that you bring up the Zoom meetings, because it makes me think about, I guess, like how the pandemic has changed communication for us, and like how we're having to like completely rewire how we approach interpersonal communication, whether it's at work or at home. It's definitely it feels like a juggling game for sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of things in the air. But I will say, when we came back from that like 3-month quarantine, I was just happy to see another face, even though it was behind a mask. I was like, oh, another human. I'm not just like staring at the mirror being like, hey. Yeah, I also feel like I've been exploring just more not really work-related podcasts too, since those have acted as support in this. So like the more emotion-based ones, and like how to deal with change.
I still think those are professional development though, because you know it affects you at work.
Yeah.
So I still think it counts, Joy.
Okay.
Anything with like emotions, communication,
Yep.
how to talk to people.
Yeah.
how to talk to people.
It's all connected.
Yeah, how to convey emotion just with your eyes.
With no mouth.
Yeah, or get one of those creepy masks with the window. You like?
I don't like those.
I like them because it's probably very helpful to the deaf community to read
Yeah.
lips. But other than that, or I don't know if it like scares children more, but I hear they've got them at children's hospitals to like have a smile.
Oh, okay.
But
No, I can see the benefits of it. It's just like a weird contraption.
No, it is, and I feel like I would be as a child. I'd be terrified if like I'd be like, this isn't helping. I really want a mask with like a straw opening.
Yeah.
Oh, there's this other podcast I listen to called F Work, but I'm a Go, and I don't have the host names up right now, but I like it because it's very casual and very like you're venting to your best friend. And so,
see, I didn't like that podcast.
Really? I like it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I'm glad that you got something out of it.
I think
I need something more structured or like less venting, more advice or something. But I mean, it is good if you need to like feel like you're not alone in hating like stuff that happens, especially in customer service.
Yeah. I mean, I will say their audio doesn't really sound good all the time.
Yeah.
But I do like the sort of less structured thing about work, because it's like work is so structured that it's like it's nice to like get that relief of two people just being like, I'm just in a bad mood today, like work was a mess, and then it's like, well, why? And it's like, ooh. I like the mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer the venting style of like, this is what it is and that's okay. Today was not a good day, like you said. So yeah, I probably would enjoy that podcast because I like things that are realistic in that way. Like, because not every day is going to be a good day. Again, toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Good communication is so important in every aspect of your life, especially at work though. If you don't have good communication skills, like it sucks.
For everyone.
Everyone involved. Exactly. Even though we're doing like genre-based podcast advisory, a lot of podcasts tend to overlap into different genres, which is interesting to me because again, it just shows how most things are connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I was just thinking, like, how do my true crime podcasts overlap with my professional development podcast? And it's like, I guess they've helped me know when people are being sketchy and creepy. And I was like, okay, I got it.
I was thinking about the mental health podcast advisory because we talked a lot about anxiety here, and that's in the mental health podcast advisory. So, because again, I'm an anxious person.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Yep. It really one of the mental health podcasts I really like that I listen to for work too is the Happiness Lab. She's a professor at Yale, but I keep forgetting her name, but it's amazing. And it's like one of the classes at Yale is like a happiness class, and it's so cool. Like the science of happiness.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
People say that's so cool. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's run by Lori Santos.
Lori Santos, that's it. Yeah, I really like it, and I feel like a lot of the podcasts, one of the big themes is like do less. But sometimes I'm like, I can't do less. I want to do less, but I can't. But so I guess it's good to get that reminder to like I don't know, if you don't have to do something extra, don't do it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Be mindful of what. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, learn to say no.
Right, and be mindful of what's on your plate already.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to overload your plate because you have a max capacity. You don't want to go over that capacity.
So for listeners at home that want some resources for their career development, what are some things that we offer for free?
So one of my favorite, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go. You.
I said one of my favorite resources is lynda.com, and I'm so glad that we got it back because basically anything that you want to learn how to do, you can learn it on Lynda. Like they have whole career paths, like anything they're doing with computers or programming, or they even have drawing classes on there. So like it's everything on there, and I love it, and it's free. So I'm just like, if any opportunity I have to like promote Lynda, like I'm trying to promote it.
Lynda.
Yeah.
I really love Canopy as well because they have a lot of films that I really like, but they also have like learning things that you can do on there. And that kind of leads into what we were talking about today, but for fun stuff too.
And I always recommend Learning Express Library.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, it has like SAT help, PSAT help, like various school exam help, but it also has help with like certifications for careers. And it has practice tests that are all free, and that's really nice.
Yes. And the BrainFuse Job Now, I think, has like career assessment stuff. So if you're like looking into changing your career, that's another good resource.
I was going to recommend BrainFuse and Lynda. Lynda is my go-to Kiana. But also, even though it's not really like a lot of professional resources, I really like Mango Languages. I've been trying to like pick up on becoming more diverse, just so that I can cater to more people. So if that's something you're interested in professional-wise, you can check that out too.
I also like Learn It Live, which is another database that we have, which they're just like different classes and different topics that it's very broad. Like you can get topics on just about anything, but they do have a few like career like management style classes on there as well.
Cool. Yay. We have so much at the library.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Free with the library card.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is about all we have today. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.